Hi, it's Ryan Casey, sales trainer, Orange Theory Fitness Studio owner. Welcome. I'm excited to see you here today. Now, you might be a business owner, you might be a manager or part of a sales staff. You might be somebody who's performing all three of those tasks. I know we have other people in sales here as well. Regardless of what position you hold, I want to let you know we're going to help you out today. There are many people that don't feel comfortable with sales or intimidated to learn it. And we're going to get into some sales training to help you out no matter where you're at. I wanted to start with the business owners. If that's you, as business owners, we need every edge we can get right now. We can't afford to be losing sales and not operating at our best. As a business owner, you work so hard to make everything run smoothly in your business. You pay all the bills, the rent, the payroll, the supplies, advertising. You put effort into all areas of your business. But if your team isn't selling, none of that matters. What if you could increase your sales in your business by 10%? What if you could increase the closing percentage by 20% or even 30%? What if I could help you double the amount of sales you're making with your current staff, right? And I'll show you an example of that exact scenario later today. World-renowned business and sales consultant, Jay Abrams, who is known for saying, when you get everybody in your organization who interacts with a client to be basically an extension of your company and a consultative salesperson, it can increase sales from 20% up to 5,000% in your business. Now, consultative sales is about asking questions and having a customer-centric approach. Increasing your closing percentage adds revenue straight to your bottom line. But not only that, it also decreases your staff turnover. It saves on cost of finding new candidates. There's less time spent training new people. Your people, they feel better when they're performing better. And if you're a member of the sales staff, you know what I mean. This also makes your manager's job much easier. And when your manager's job is easier, they are happier. They stay around longer. And that's also a huge key in leveraging your business. Now, staff, I know where you're coming from, right? If you're like most people working a small business, you love the industry you're in, whether that's fitness or health, beauty, whatever industry the business is in, but you don't love sales. You put up with it because it keeps you working in that industry you love. I don't know if there's anybody in here who can relate to that, but how would it feel to be really good at sales? Now, I'm not talking about the sales you see on the TV, the stereotypical used car salesperson or Wolf of Wall Street. I'm talking about real sales. Real sales is about connecting with people. It's about helping your clients find solutions for their needs and their goals. And it's about making a real difference in people's lives through your product or service. And that's what the REAL stands for in my company, Real Business Solutions. That's an acronym for results from empathy, asking questions, and listening. Now let's get back to the business owners. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that you might be facing, right? You might be consistently losing sales, and it seems like your staff isn't even trying to make those sales sometimes. You get to the point where you don't even want to listen because it'll drive you crazy hearing the different things that they're missing in their approach. They're not even asking for the person to buy, asking with negative expectations, saying something like, did you want to get it? Okay. Or not attempting to handle any objections. If the customer says, I want to think about it, or any type of objection, they just say, okay, and they just kind of fold over and give in. Now, your salespeople might be miserable when it comes to sales, and they do everything they can to avoid selling, whether it's busy work, looking at their phones, or they find easy tasks to complete that don't really generate any revenue. You might have spotless bathrooms, but they're not selling anything. I don't know if anybody can relate with that. Your staff, they're scared and intimidated by even the word sales. And it's really only a matter of time in those cases before they're going to put in their notice and the cycle is going to start again, except the new personnel will require more training, more onboarding time, more money spent on finding candidates, and more time wasted that could be on sales. You might be searching for a better sales process. You've tried coaching and motivating and training. It just doesn't seem to work. And if you can relate to any of those, I want to let you know that you're in the right place. So actually, I'm even going to give a free gift later today for anybody who moves forward with my offer. So now, first, I wanted to give you a little history on my story. So I started in sales in 1997 as a senior in high school. And I was not what you would say a born salesperson. I was actually very, very shy. So shy, in fact, that when I came home to tell my parents about my new job, which I was really excited, I just actually got a job. I ran home, I told my parents, and I walked in, I said, Mom, Dad, I have this new job. And they'd say, great, what are you doing? I say, I'm going to be going to people's houses and selling knives. And still to this day, 22 years later, I have never seen my dad laugh so hard, like rolling on the ground laughing, because he didn't think there was any way his super shy son was going to be able to go to people's houses and sell them knives, right? I was very, very shy, but that him laughing at me gave me some fuel. I wanted to prove him wrong. And I needed that fuel because I was bad. I was really bad. But I was able to learn. And what happened is it gave me the confidence that anyone can not only learn to be good at sales, but can also learn to enjoy it when it's done right. You know, I went on to be a manager with that company for over 20 years. And in past, I've trained thousands of sales representatives. So many of you are familiar with Cutco. For those of you who are not familiar with Cutco, basically as a Cutco manager, what I did was take young adults with little to no job experience, teach them how to set up in-home appointments, then go on a sales call to do this presentation, got them to close over 70% of their sales with about a $400 average order for knives. And when they would go see a customer, over 90% of the people they would go see were not expecting them to buy when they started that appointment. And to top it off, they only work on referrals. So we don't give them any leads. They weren't allowed to go door to door. They weren't allowed to cold call. We had to teach them how to generate their own referrals. And that's what we did. Now, my slow start in sales personally helped my conviction as a trainer that I could teach anyone sales. And about 5 years ago, I opened up our first Orange Theory Fitness studio. Now, compared to teaching people how to do direct sales, in-store retail was a piece of cake. However, seeing resumes in the fitness industry was a shocking sight for me. I remember looking at some resumes and people had 2 or 3 years of experience and they'd work at 12 or 13, 14 different places in that 2 or 3 years. And so I was amazed at that consistent turnover. I really focused training our people to enjoy the sales process and not just the fitness element of it. And we ended up opening with over 700 members. 2 years later, we opened our second studio and duplicated that 700 pre-sales. I don't know if there's any business owners who have gone through the pre-sales process, but you know what kind of process that it can be. Both studios were operating at 1,200 reoccurring members before COVID. And, you know, I realized that many small businesses and franchises were not giving or didn't have access to sales training that really made their people feel successful and comfortable. You know, there's a million sales courses out there, but they're generally more intimidating and not as effective for many of our staff members who don't care so much about sales as they love the industry and the people. Now, I just so happened to get a phone call with Eric Van Horn, who many of you in franchising probably know. He runs a franchise tribe and is part of Franchise Secrets podcast. And he started asking how we were able to gain and maintain so many members in our studio. And I basically told him, I teach my people how to sell. And so we started digging into how I do that, which is what I'll be sharing with you later today here. And after hearing that, he said, you know, let's do a sales challenge for franchisees that I know. And I know some of you probably were in that challenge. And here's what Eric had to say about that franchise sales challenge. He said, after talking to Ryan the first time on the phone, hearing the results of his studios were getting in his background, I knew other franchisees could greatly benefit from his sales training. After running a double your sales challenge with him this summer, the feedback we heard was fantastic. I highly recommend any franchisee or business owner get your staff trained by Ryan. Henry Kim was one of those owners who attended. He had employees from all 6 of his massage envies, 2 lash lounges on the challenge. And here's what he had to say there. He said, our locations were struggling with membership sales prior to Ryan's training. And after his training, all locations increased their sales closing. We are now regularly tops in our region in membership sales. Thank you, Ryan Casey. So let me show you what's possible though. How would you feel about doubling your sales in your business right now? If you're struggling with sales, tired of throwing more and more money at advertising, simply to see a higher and higher percentage of those leads not end up turning into clients, then this is your answer. Todd and Melissa own 3 massage envies studios in Texas, and their towns had been hit hard with COVID. There were also layoffs from many of the energy companies, and their sales had been declining. After our sales challenge and getting their staff some extra training, here are the results 1 month later. All 3 of their locations over doubled their closing percentage. And you might say, well, if they had been hit hard, it might not have been as easy. It might have been a little easier to double the percentage after they've been hit hard. So recently on a Zoom call with Todd and Melissa, they had this to say. about their big October sales promotion. And that is double the sales, same amount, same hours paid, same staffing, just more effective using the process and skills that I'm about to share with you. And that was 2020 over 2019. So they sold more with COVID happening than they did the year before without it. And the most common mistakes here, let's get into this. If you took my quiz, then you should be familiar with at least one of the most common sales killers. For most small businesses, I've found that the mistakes from their sales staff fall into three major buckets. So the first one is mindset-based mistakes. Now, mindset-based mistakes, that means your staff has a negative view of sales. They're intimidated or they have a strong dislike for sales. Many of them seem indifferent to the outcome if a client actually purchases. They just don't care if the person buys or not. They don't see the value in it. Many have tried to avoid every sales opportunity they possibly can. Now, for others, they might come across perfect. They're friendly, they connect with customers, but when it comes down to it, they just can't close any sales. They're afraid to ask for the clients to buy. They love the relationship aspect of it, but they can't translate that and convert it into a sale. I don't know if you have any of those people in your business. So those are mindset-based mistakes. Skill-based mistakes are where your staff gives a great effort. They want to sell, but they just make too many tactical errors. They're not skilled in building good rapport with customers. They're not strategic in asking the right questions. They're unable to effectively handle objections. And this is common. Most small businesses, they don't have a lot of sales training built into their onboarding process. As business owners, we tell our staff what to do, but we don't give a lot of extra training on how to do it better, especially in sales. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. And lastly, we have process-based mistakes. And this is where your staff might want to sell. They give a good effort. They aren't incredibly afraid of sales. They just don't have the right approach. And I see this a lot with franchises. There's a process for the franchise, which is something like this. You book the appointment, you meet the prospect and give them an onboarding or a client intake form. You set up their first class or service or whatever your product is, and then you try to sell a membership after. But that's not a real sales process. That's not going to help your people selling anymore. That's just kind of an order of operations there. If your people are inconsistent with how they approach customers, how they ask questions or handle concerns, they need help following the right process. So how do we fix these? Well, let's dig deeper into the process-based mistakes. And what I'm going to do is give you an overview of what I teach on my real sales training course. For you owners and managers, this is a perfect topic to teach at a staff meeting. I'll actually teach this about once a quarter to all our new sales associates, and then do refreshers, at least once a quarter, and I'll dig in more in between on some of the individual topics. Now, before we start with the process though, you have to have a foundation that you're going to build everything on. And that is, what is your objective? What is your main objective for your sales staff? Do you have a main objective that you promote to your sales staff? So when a customer comes in, a potential customer, potential client, what is your objective with them, right? Is your goal just to make a sale? Because if it is, that leads to more pressure and intimidation for your staff. Did you make a sale? Did they buy? Did they get it? Which one did they buy? Did they buy? Did you make a sale, right? It also doesn't lead to many long-term clients because your people just focus on the sale and not really necessarily on setting up any long-term relationship. That might not lead to the culture that you want in your business. And if you didn't have an objective, then you're probably coaching as if a sale is the most important thing, because it's generally the metric that your staff gets measured by. Now, others might say, you know what, our main objective is to understand our customers' whys. What's their main objective? What's their main objective? What motivates them? And that's an admirable cause. But here's what you need to look at: is your objective is like a timeline. This is when you first meet the prospect to when you accomplish the objective. And what you have to do is look at that timeline and ask yourself, where does a sale fall within that timeline? So if our objective is to understand what motivates them and their why, well, a sale happens after that. So what happens is that when you're working with your people, you say, did you accomplish the main objective? And they'll say, yes, I did a great job. I understood their why. I know what motivates them. I know what they're really excited about. Great. Did they buy? No. Well, you're not going to be in business too long with that, or you're going to mismanage your staff to where now they feel bad, even though they did accomplish the objective you've been talking about the whole time. So the goal is to have the sale fall within the timeline of your objective. So a good objective would be to have a long-term member who's part of your community. Well, for them to be a long-term member and part of the community, a sale had to happen somewhere in that process to get them there. But now, once you have that objective, what we're going to do is we're going to build everything tied into that objective. Every single step of our process is going to be tied to that. So let's get into the process here. Now, if we use a 5-step process, and each step builds on the previous one. So if you do this effectively, each step is going to be much, much easier. Now, the goal of this process is to also reframe how most people think about sales. And this is what makes the process so effective, is that many of your staff members that start tuning out as soon as they hear the word sales in sales training, right? And so this process basically breaks down what good selling is into 5 bite-sized pieces that are very easy to absorb and implement for each of your staff members. So let's get started with the first one. First step is building rapport. Now, how many awkward staff members have you had in your business? I was one of those people when I started with sales, right? I was extremely shy. Some people can be thrown into a room and just naturally connect with others. I was not one of those people. Learning how to build rapport is something anybody can do though. Even your people who are very charismatic though, they're not always great at building rapport. Just because they can talk doesn't mean they can connect. Sometimes they don't know when to stop talking, right? And many of your businesses, especially if it's in health or fitness or beauty, you have clients that deal with some very intimate problems and needs. If you really want a client to open up to you about what they need help with and what their goal is, there has to be a connection there. If there's no connection, it's going to be much harder to really get to what this client truly wants and how you can help them. And so, do any of you have staff members that could benefit from some rapport training? We also cover a lot of rapport on the phone as well. Now, the second step is asking the right questions. So once we've connected with the customer, then it's about letting them talk, right? Too often salespeople get into their pitch before really hearing anything with the customers about what the customer's needs are. And this is also why rapport is so important. If there's no rapport, the answers to your questions are very generic. For fitness, for example, if you don't have good rapport and you ask somebody, what are your fitness goals? You're going to get generic responses like, to lose a few pounds or to get in some better shape. Well, if you're solving that need, that's not a very emotional need. That's not something that brings a lot of value to get a little bit better shape or lose a few pounds. Now, if you have rapport and a good connection, you might hear answers like, you know what, my biggest goal is to be able to keep up with my kids. I'm too out of shape and I get tired when I'm trying to play with them and run around. Now, imagine solving that problem for that client. How much more value does your product or service now have just simply because you got them to open up a little bit more? That's a big difference. But it's not just about asking the canned questions on a client intake form. It's about finding their why. And it's not only about what you ask, but it's about how you ask them. Your goal is to help them, not interrogate them. You don't have the list of questions and make them feel like they're in an FBI interrogation room. It's about being strategic about which questions you ask them, each one with a purpose. So then we move to the third step, and that is where you educate your client. There's a big difference between educating and selling to your customers. If you're saying a specific canned approach every single time, you're not educating, you're pushing what you want to sell on your clients. And this part should be a little different every single time because of what you're going to emphasize, what the customer told you, what was important to them when you were asking questions. If you build rapport with your customer, you ask the right questions, and then you explain exactly how your product or service aligns with what that customer told you they wanted, what they don't like, or what hasn't worked for them in the past, and what their goals are, then every client that comes in should be saying, this business was created just for me. This is perfect. And that is what happens when you execute this step properly. That leads us to the fourth step, is to listen and problem solve. And at this point, everyone should want what you have, but there might be something holding them back, and they give you an objection. You know, in sales, handling objections is a very common phrase. It's taught and role played often. I don't teach handling objections. And here's why. What client do you have that wants to be handled, right? Do you think any of your staff members want to handle your clients when it comes to their objections? Handling objections can be one of the most intimidating things in sales to even the most experienced salespeople. Now, how do you think your staff members who don't even like sales and have very little training are going to feel about that? The analogy I like to use is telling your staff to handle objections is like throwing them in the boxing ring with Mike Tyson and telling them just to handle it. Just handle it, right? That's super intimidating, and they're probably going to give up without a fight, right? Have you ever seen that in your business before, where a customer gives a staff member an objection and they just say, okay, right? They don't even try to have any type of response. So instead of handling objections, we teach listen, understand, problem solve. Customer wants to be listened to. They want to be understood. And if you do those things, they're going to be much more willing to hear your solution. Now, if you were a staff member, what would you feel more comfortable with being taught? Handling objections. When a customer says this, you say that. If they say that, then you say this. Is that what you feel more comfortable with? Or would you feel more comfortable if your managers were telling them, hey, do you feel comfortable listening and understanding to your clients? Yeah. And then helping them problem solve? Great. Well, that's what we do. When a customer doesn't buy, you want to make sure that you listen and then understand what's holding them back, then offer them a solution. And even when you just say it, it's staff, it sounds so much less intimidating. So then we go to the fifth and last step. And that is where we reassure and bridge. So remember back to our foundation. Our goal is not to just make a sale. It's to have a long-term client or build a community of people consistently hitting their goals or whatever your objective was, right? So once they buy, we are not done. I like to use a restaurant example. If you go to fast food and you order food, they say that's $7. If you go to a nice restaurant, if they do a good job, no matter what you order, they generally say something along the lines of excellent choice. They make you feel good about your decision. And then we bridge them to your objective. So it's a part of community. We give them tools like access to the Facebook group or whatever it may be. And we kind of dig in with each person's objective and how we help you get them there. Now, as you can see, this process is made up of different skills, which I teach in detail, not just the skill, but we focus on the mindset around it. And I remember one of our top staff members, right when we first started and opened up Orange Theory, she said, I love Orange Theory. I love helping people. I love helping them hit their goals, but I hate selling. I just don't like selling. Can I just do everything except for sales? And I said, well, do you like connecting with people? And she's like, yeah, I really like connecting with people. I'm like, do you like getting to know the members and their goals and hear about their experiences? She's like, oh yeah, that's a lot of fun. I'm like, do you like to educate people about OTF? And she goes, oh yeah, I'm always telling people about how awesome OTF is and all the cool things about it. I'm like, well, do you like to help our members problem solve and figure out, solutions to their problems and listen to them? And she's like, yeah, I can do that. I'm like, can you celebrate with our clients once they become a member? She's like, it's like my favorite part when people are new members. I'm like, guess what? That's what sales is. You can sell. And you should have seen the look on her face. It was like that movie with Steve Carell where he said, oh, you Miyagi'd me, right? She didn't even see what was happening. It was paint the fence, sand the floor. And really what that is we taught her how to sell. And once she looked at it and had that different framing of what sales actually was, it changed everything. She was great. She just had this view of sales from previous experience that she just had determined in her mind she didn't like sales. And that really wasn't the case. She didn't like the sales that she had tried to attempt in the past. And by reframing it, she ended up enjoying the process and actually doing a great job. So that's our process. Right now, you might have some questions like, I'm not a salesperson. How am I going to teach my entire staff? Or my manager has enough on their plate. Do I really want to pile this stuff on and have them learn this and then teach it to our people? I don't know how much money I can afford to spend right now. That basically you have two options if you want to implement these strategies. And you can teach your staff yourself or have your manager teach it, or you can work with me. And before I explain the price, let me show you what we cover in our Real Sales Management course. So the first thing we cover is the right mindset for sales, where we eliminate fear and intimidation so you can have a happier and more confident staff. Then we get into 4 ways to build rapport with your clients. So you can have a staff that connects with any prospect and they feel confident in their ability to approach others and build a relationship of trust. We go over how to craft 3 different types of questions that will make your sales easy, right? So you can see your staff becoming more skilled in asking the right questions, getting to sales quicker, and eliminating the majority of your objections. We cover the difference between educating and pushy selling, right? Making your staff and clients more comfortable with how your products and services are explained so your clients see the maximum value of what you offer. We get rid of objection handling. We have, you don't have a staff that attempts to handle objections anymore, but instead really listens and problem solves with your clients to create more sales. And then We cover creating long-term clients, about reassuring, about bridging to your objective, building your business through referrals. We also add some phone skills. You know, reassuring doesn't take a long time to teach. So in this module, we dig into how to apply this process on the phone, setting up and getting people to show up for your appointments, and also generating referrals in your business. So that's the Real Sales Training course, which is a $2,000 value for the training course. Now, I do offer some free bonuses. The first one is the Core Values Index training. And this is the most accurate personality assessment, and it helps your staff members work with each client in the way the client wants to be worked with. It's also a great tool for your managers in working with your staff members. We also have a Facebook group that I've thrown for free where staff members can post questions and interact, can post homework or ask questions for me in the group. Each week, I also host a live question and answer session where I'll be answering the questions listed from the last training. So I generally will do the trainings in a webinar format where I can still take questions and do some answers on there. But then the next day we do a full question and answer session in Zoom format where you can see faces, they can practice role playing with me, and we can really dig into their questions. We also have some worksheets. This is really good for your staff members to fill out during the course. You can also use these as an accountability tool. So when you tell your staff member to watch the module, you make sure they fill out the handout so you can cover it with them. You can use those as topics for your next staff meeting in your business. And then probably the best part is ongoing access to the recordings after the course. So you can always go back and log in and do a refresher. And continue to use the training. It's tough to tell somebody something once and have it be super effective, but being able to always go back and even just watch a little section of one of the lessons can be really impactful and also cover a lot of your staff meetings for the foreseeable future. Now, you might be saying, so how much is this going to cost me? You know, sales training can be thousands of dollars per person getting trained. So at $2,000, if you have 5 staff members, that's $10,000. But what if you're like Henry, who had 50 staff members on your Double the Sales Challenge, right? How much is it going to cost? Well, I'm going to train your staff of not just up to 5, but up to 10, right? And it isn't $10,000. In fact, it's not as much as the total value of all that's offered of $3,550. The Real Sales Training course for up to 10 staff members, 10 separate logins is $2,000. And what you can do is down the road, if one of your staff members ends up leaving and you hire a new person, you can swap their login info and I can give access to that new person as well. But because this is my inaugural launch of this course, I'm offering a special. If you register today, I'm cutting the price in half. And so it's only $997 today. And I'm doing this because I recognize it's tough times. I want to make this affordable for any small business. And in fact, you can even pay over 2 months of $587 over 2 months. Now, for some of you with monthly memberships, I want you to ask yourself, you know, how many sales would it take for you to pay for the cost of this training, right? If you have monthly memberships, it might only be 1 or 2 additional memberships. For others, it might be 3, 4, maybe 10 additional members. But how much more revenue would you produce if your sales team closed 10% higher, 20% higher? What if your staff was like Todd and Melissa example, and your closing percentage doubled, right? Now, the catch is this price only runs until I start on December 8th. I'm doing this live, and starting on the 8th, our course is going to go live, and you will lose the opportunity to jump in on the first time pricing. If you're seeing this after the 8th, it's probably going to be at a higher price there. You might be able to join in and catch some of the recordings on the first ones. But the next time I run this full course is going to be months from now. How many additional sales would you lose out on by waiting? And if you're still unsure, I'm going to make this really easy for you. I will give you a 15-day money back guarantee. That's first 2 weeks of this course. And if after 15 days, your people aren't learning, you don't feel like it's making the impact that you expected, I will give you a 100% refund. You have nothing to lose. And for those of you who buy right now, while still on the webinar, I'm going to send you my goal setting for salespeople workbook for free. So let me explain what you get again. You get 5 trainings that will be live and also be able to handle some questions throughout the training. You have one day dedicated to each one of the steps that we covered. You have a bonus CVI training there. There's 6 live question and answer sessions each week to answer questions from that week or even previous weeks if they're playing catch up there. You have handouts for each of your staff members. It's access for up to 10 people on your staff. If you lose a staff member months from now and you want to swap in with a new hire, you can just swap out their log info without having to pay for any additional ones. If you do need more than 10 spots, additional spots are only $25 per person. The Facebook group is there for the interaction. You have ongoing access to the recording. So even if they miss one, they can watch it. When the course is over, they can go back and watch not only the live training, but go back to the question and answer. So if there was a role play where we were practicing one of the questions they have on what would you say if a customer says this, and it was really good and it pertains specifically to your business, you can go back and rewatch that section there. And then it's only half price for initial launch, only $9.97. And the last thing I'm going to throw in is I'm also going to include free access to additional live training. So I will be most likely running this anywhere from 2 to 4 times, probably once every 3 months to once every 6 months. And when I run this again, if you have signed up and you're a member, you can put your staff through the live training again. So maybe they just want to catch the question and answer. Maybe you have new people that weren't able to catch the first training, and so they can watch it live there, but that is also included. Now, some common questions. When does it start? It's December 8th, and then it's going to be every Tuesday for 6 weeks. When are the question and answer sessions? Those are Wednesdays the next day. So that way it's fresh in their head. And again, if they didn't watch it in time, they can always ask questions from the previous module on the next week. So it's not going to be just for that one. They can go back and ask some questions. How long are the trainings? Trainings typically run 45 to 60 minutes. It's not an incredibly long time. It's not a whole day, definitely. We try to keep it pretty quick. I'd say 45 to 60 minutes, give or take 10 minutes, depending on the day and how many questions we have there. When will the access to recordings be up? I'll put them in Facebook within a couple hours afterwards until I load them up onto the course. And so they'll generally be in the website by the end of the day. And once they're there, I'll usually probably take it off the Facebook. So it's just all in one place in the website there. Other questions? No. Is there any ongoing cost to the recorded access? No, there's no ongoing access. Once you purchase the course, you have ongoing access to the recordings, and you can use them at any time. So your last opportunity to sign up now is and get that free goal setting workbook there. It's great for going over with your salespeople. It's really good on teaching how to set sales goals, right? It talks about the difference between results versus activity-based goals, some characteristics of good goals, how to set good goals. It's excellent material to cover at a staff meeting. So I hope you sign up now. I'm excited to see all of you who already signed up. If you haven't signed up, get it done before the half price special is over and the price goes up. And please share with any other business owners that you know would greatly benefit from getting their staff trained. Can't wait to work with your teams. Thank you so much and have a great day.